Tov. Today's daf yomi is Bava Kamma daf Yud Ches, Bava Kamma 18. But we're going to start on the bottom of 17b, 7 lines from the bottom, where Rava asked the question by Rava Darsal Kli. Let's say an animal is walking and it steps on a utensil. Below Shivarto, the utensil doesn't break right away. The utensil rolls to another place. Vinishbar, and it breaks in the other place. Mahu, what will be the halacha? Basar mi karas. Do we say that we go after where the initial contact was made with the utensil, the gufehu? It's part of the animal's body, and so therefore we'll call it regel, and we'll say you have to pay full damages. Or maybe we say where the animal where the actual utensil breaks, and since it rolled there, vitroros ninu, and it's considered to be troros or like pebbles. And so therefore we're going to say, according to the Rabbanan, it's half damages. Sumcha says troros are full damages. The Rabbanan say troros are half damages. So how do we categorize this? So the Gemara says, well, tifshalemi de Rabba. Let's respond to this from Rabba's example. Rabba's teaching the Amar Rabba. You throw Reuben throws a utensil off of a roof, and then Shimon comes and breaks it with a stick before it actually hits the ground. Potter. Then we're going to say Shimon is exempt. Because he says because we say he broke a broken utensil, so Reuben's one responsible. So to here we go after me karazlina, and after the initial action. So the Gemara says, well, the reason why Rabba's not answering the question from Rabba is Rabba was clear about what the ruling was in that case, but Rabba was unclear. So the Gemara says, okay, we'll try and bring a proof from a brisa, and this brisa we're going to actually quote 3 separate times on our daf. Tashma hidus eno muad. If the animal is hopping, that's not going to be considered a muad. If the chicken is hopping, that's not considered a muad. If it does damage while hopping, but some say it is a muad. So he does the Gemara says, really? Why would you not consider damage done by hopping to be a muad? That's a normal way in which the animal walks. It's regel. No, so it must be that it was hopping and something rolled out as a result from it. Meaning to say, we must say that we're talking about is that the utensil rolled as a result and did the damage elsewhere, like the case of Rava asking. And so we have to say that one opinion is that we're following the initial output, which is like Rava said, and therefore we're going to say that it is full damages. And the other approach is to say, therefore it's a muad. The other approach is to say basar tavar manazlina, where the utensil breaks, and so therefore we're going to say it's like troros and it's half damages. The Gemara says no. Well, that's not what we're talking about. The Gemara says we're on top of Yud Ches Amud Aleph, the hitis troros, where what happened was he was hopping, the chicken was hopping, and it kicked up pebbles. Put to the Simchas Rabbanan. This is the same dispute as Simchas Rabbanan. That Simcha says it's a muad, pays full damages, and Rabbanan say it's a chatzi muad. Rabbanan says it's troros, it pays half damages. So again, we're still trying to answer Rava's question. So Tarnagolan shayim mechatim bechavel pli. Let's say you have a chicken that's pecking away at the string on a bucket. V'nivsa kachavel, and the string breaks. V'nishbarat pli, and the bucket breaks. Mishal nezik shalim. So then we're going to say, under those circumstances, you pay full damages. Shmamina basar meikarazli, and we see it goes from the initial action. Even though the bucket rolled and broke elsewhere, we go following the initial action. So this should answer Rava's question. So the Gemara says, Tirgama achavel. No, we're going to say that what do you pay full damages on the string, not on the bucket. Gemara says, but the string, the chicken was pecking at it. There should be half damages. Because chickens don't typically peck at a string. Gemara says no, it was demos belisha because it was covered with food. So therefore, And so therefore we're going to say it was muad to do that because it's shane. It's not something unusual. So the Gemara says vanishbar dli katani, but it says when the bucket breaks. So clearly not talking about the shane. We're talking about the bucket. Ela sumchasi. So the Gemara says, okay, the position that says you pay full damages on the bucket is the position of sumchas, who says that this is tzoros, that since it rolled and did the damage there, we're going to say it's full damages. Who says tzoros nezek shalom mishalom? It says tzoros you pay full damages, and so therefore you can't answer the question of Rava from Sumchos, because even if Sumchos says that you go from where it breaks, and we're going to view it as tzoros, nevertheless, Sumchos himself says always you pay full damages for tzoros. So therefore you can't answer Rava's question, because this question is according to the Rabbanan. The Gemara says, well, if you want to say it's sumchos, these sumchos ema sefer, but the next clause says nitas mimenu shever for nefal kuyachar v'shevra. Let's say from this bucket something broke off and fell on a different utensil and broke it. Al rishon m'shalim nezek shalim va'achar m'shalim chatzi nezek. For the latter one, you pay half damages. These sumchos miyislei chatzi nezek. Sumchos doesn't say. The sumchos says you always pay full damages by this case of pebbles, and if you want to say if you want to say, well, maybe sumchos will be of the position that you pay half damages if it's the koach kocho, if it's the derivative of the initial tzoros, if it's like another degree removed, maybe sumchos would say you pay half damages, and that's what the conclusion is. You can't say that because Rashi once asked this question. He says, "Koch kocho or sumchos could kocho dami or could kocho dami." Rashi says, "I don't know what sumchos says in this case of where it's koach kocho. Does he say it's full damages like kocho, or does he say it's half damages like the Rabbanan say about tzoros in general?" Well, if that's the case, if you want to explain that this price goes according to sumchos, you could have been able to answer Rav Hashi's question. Tivshalei delav could kocho dami. You could have answered it that he pays half damages because it's not like kocho. Elav Rabbanan. It must be that this price, which says that if the bucket falls to another place and breaks the utensil there, that it's half damages, it must be it follows the position of the Rabbanan. We see from here the rabbis say that in this case you go from the initial action, and so therefore we're going to say it's tzoros and you pay half damages. So it says Rabbi Rabbi, no, that's not necessarily the case here. What we're talking about here is that what's going on here is that the chicken is pushing the chicken is pushing with his whole body, and it wasn't a case where it rolled to another place and broke, but the chicken was pushing it with his whole body. And so therefore, since the chicken was pushing it with his whole body, that's why we're going to say in that case he pays full damages, because that was and because he broke it with his body, so it's like a case of regel. So therefore, that's what we'd have to say. So by Rava, so now Rava asks another question. So Rava asks another question. Rava's question is Chatzi Nezek Tzoros Mikufo Mishalim or Me'aliyah Mishalim. So he says when you pay half damages for pebbles that the Rabbanan say, do we pay that from the gufo, meaning is there a cap on it? Is the limitation on the value of the ox itself? Or ma'aliyah mishalim, what do you pay from your whole assets? You mean there's no cap? The gufo mishalim, do we say that the tzoros are from the gufo? Because the law is chatzi nezek the mishalim ma'aliyah. Because whenever it's half damages, it's always migufo, like by a time. Odil me'aliyah mishalim, or maybe you pay from the aliyah, meaning there's no cap from all your assets. Because in the case of because in a case where it happens in the normal manner, it's a muad, we never have the circumstance that there's a cap on it, and then you pay from the body of the ox. So what's the answer here? So the second time we cite this price for our daf, Tashma Hidos ain't a muad, muad. So this hopping of the chicken is not a muad, and some say it's a muad. So the Gemara says, he just talk that. Of course, hopping is a muad. That's what the animal does. He just reheates. So if it does the hopping and then it kicks up pebbles. The Bava Kamma for Mandamar ain't a muad. So it must be that this is the argument. The one who says it's not a muad must be saying Kasavar migufo mashalim. He must be saying that you pay from the gufo because not a muad, so you pay half damages migufo. Uman da amar muad, and the one that says it's a muad must be saying kasavar me'aliyah mashalim. He must say you pay from all of its assets. Gemara says no, but put to the sumchas rabbanan. No, that's not the argument. The argument is straight out sumchas rabbanan. Sumchas says it's a muad, and the rabbanan say it's not a muad. A second approach to answer this question: do we pay the tzoros from the gufo or from the aliyah? Tashma kelash. So a dog took a cookie which had a coal on it. That's the way they used to bake their biscuits. It went to the stack of hay, and it ate the coal. And in doing so, it lit the fire. In doing so, it lit the fire. So we say under those circumstances, for the biscuit that it ate, it pays full damages because that's shane. And for the stack of grain that it lit, it pays half damages. My time, what's the reason? Why are we paying half damages for the Gedish? Isn't it because it's something that was a Tzoros, and so therefore you pay half damages? Vitani Allah, and we learned about that price, and Misham Chatzin Nezek Migufo, and you pay half damages from the Gufo. So therefore we see to answer the question, you pay half damages from and there's a cap on it. The Gemara says, the Tizbara, it can't be that that's the way you explain it. Why? Do you really want to say that the reason why you're liable is because it's Tzoros? That's not the reason. Vitani Vitizbara Rebbe Lazar Nezek Shalom Migufe. Rebbe Lazar says, in this case, you pay full damages and there's a cap on it. Now, this is the part of the price that was not, we didn't have cited before here, but in the price, Rebbe Lazar says that you pay full damages. And even if you want to say that he holds like Sumchas, who says Tzoros is Nezek Shalom, but really, it wouldn't be Migufe under those circumstances, because anything where it's happened in the normal manner, it's going to be Mi'aliyah. So therefore, the Tizbur Rebbe Lazar Nezek Shalom Migufe Mi'ashkan. So it must be El Gon. So what's the case here? It's not a case of Orcha. It's not a case in the normal manner. It's a case where it's unusual and it's goring. It could go into Shani Baha Begachelet. He did something unusual with the coals, meaning to say, Rashi says he took them with his mouth and he put it there, which is a shinoi. So therefore, we have no answer to this question, because that's why he's saying you pay half damages from the gufo is because it's Karen, not because it is Tzoros. Okay, so the Gemara says the Rebbe Lazar, and what's the reason why Rebbe Lazar says you pay full damages there? Because several Krebi Tarafon, because Rebbe Lazar holds a Krebi Tarafon, he says Mishuna Karen, that if you do unusual, if you have a tam, does his goring b'chotzer nizik nezik shalom mishalim, that he pays the full damages, and even though it's migufo, he still pays full damages. So the Gemara says Velohi, but we're not going to say that this Vitizbra that you asked, and you want to learn from here that Rebbe Lazar is not talking about Tzoros, because then he wouldn't say you pay migufo. It's not the case. My time Muklos Rebbe Tarafon. What's the reason why we want to say the Rebbe Lazar holds like Rebbe Tarafon? Only because Mishum Nezek Shalom, because it's full complete damages, which is what Rebbe Tarafon says, and migufo. But Rebbe Lazar Savar Kechum. What's the reason why he established like Rebbe Tarafon Mishum Nezek Shalom? Because Rebbe Lazar. What's the reason why we established it like Rebbe Tarafon? Because Mishum Nezek Shalom, but that's not the real reason. That's not a valid thing, because Rebbe Lazar could hold like Sumchas, the Amar Tzoros Nezek Shalom Mishalim, because he could hold like Sumchas who says you pay full damages, but he could also have a migufo with several like Rebbe Yehuda. He could also hold like Rebbe Yehuda who says Sad Thomas Bim Komo Medis. He says that under certain circumstances, and we'll get to this sugya in more depth on Daf Lamed Tes, and under certain circumstances, even though you're paying full damages, you still pay gufo. part of it should be still paid as a tam begufo. Chikatano migufo, and so therefore, when Rebbe Lazar says it's full damages from the gufo, that he wasn't referring to. He wasn't referring to the whole entirety of it at Tzad Tamas. He was just referring to a part of it that was called Tzad Tamas. So we still haven't answered the question. So Amar, because we challenge it. So Amar way Rav Sama Braid Rav Asher Ravino Amor the Shamas Rav Yehuda Betam V'Nas Amud. Maybe when does Rav Yehuda say this position that there's the Tzad Tamos B'Mkomo Medis that you still pay an aspect of the Tam? Maybe he only says that when it was a tam and it became a muad, that's when he says that you still pay a portion of the tam. But in this case of tzroros, where it was muad mitchilasa, where it was initially muad, maybe he would say mishamasle. Does he really say that you still pay half of it from the tzad tamos, half of a migufo? Elikika amar Rebbe Lazar. So therefore, we have to say, when does Rebbe Lazar say that the owner of the dog pays the full damages? Nezek Shalom could go into Yayid. We must be talking about a case where the dog did this damage to the tzoros 3 times, and so therefore he became a muad to do this type of damages, and that's why he says you pay full damages. And this is the nature of the dispute between Rebbe Lazar and the Chachamim. Mar Savar Yesh Ado Tzoros, that the Rebbe Lazar's of the position that since the dog did this 3 times, it's a muad, and so therefore he has to pay that full damages, even though it's tzoros. So Mar Savar. Ado tzoros. So the Chachamim say no, there's no ado for the tzoros. It pays half damages because it's halacha Moshe Sinai. Even after it does it 3 times, that the tzoros pays 3 damage, half damages. So now the Gemara brings another question of Rava. What about the following question that Rava asked? Yesha ado tzoros, so ain't ado tzoros. So why don't we answer this question from here? Rava asked, can the tzoros become a muad or not? Now, why don't we say? Why does he have? According to your approach, why does he have this question? Il Rabban, according to the Rabbanan, he says, "Ain't ado etzoros." Rabbanan say there's no ado etzoros, and Il Rabbi Lazar, yesh ado etzoros. There is ado. So what's he asking? Amar Rava. No, Rava would say, "Kimi b'ayle udidi." My question about whether there's muad for tzoros, that was aliba the Rabbanan the pligile the sumchos. I was only asking according to the Rabbanan who argue with Simchos and say it's half damages. The Rabbanan and Rebbe Lezer here hold like Simchos who say it's full damages. The Amar Tzoros Nezik Shalom Mishalim. So if that's the case, why do the Rabbanan here say it's half damages? The time my Amar Rabbanan Chatzi Nezik. Why do they say it's only half damages here? The Shani V'lo Yaid. What's the reason? Because the Bryce is talking about a case where he did the damages, which is shinoi, and he didn't do it 3 times, so he did it in an unusual manner. So therefore, we're going to say, and this goes back to the dispute of Rabitar from the Rabbanan. If it happens in the domain of the nizak, that an ox scores in the domain of the nizak, according to Rabbi Lazar, that's Rabbi Tarf. The opinion of Rabbi Lazar is like Rabbi Tarfon, who says that it's liable for full damages. And according to Chachamim, it's like a tam, and it pays only half damages. Okay, so now the Gemara says, the Gemara has a question about this. Okay, we understand that Rabbi Tarfon says that under those circumstances, that Rabbi Tarfon says that if the ox scores in the domain of the nizak, he pays full damages. But mikufo mishamasle, but he doesn't say it's mikufo. He says it's mialiyah. Gemara says no. In meyechi ma'isila, no. Rabbi Tarfon would say you pay half damage mikufo. Why? Because what's the source for the idea that you pay full damages in the domain of the nizak? Mikara mershos harabim. He learns out from a case of goring in the public domain. So because goring pays half damages in the public domain, so therefore we're going to be stricter in the domain of the nizak to say full damages. But but we're going to learn out just but goring is from you pay from the gufo. So too, you're not going to go beyond that if that's the source of the kal v'chomer, and you're not going to say he pays from the aliyah. The Gemara says, Rabbi Tarfon leislei dayo, but don't we say in general that Rabbi Tarfon doesn't follow this position of dayo, that you're limited by the source of the kal v'chomer and you can't make it stricter. The Gemara says, no, ki leislei dayo echad mifrach kal v'chomer. Where does Rabbi Tarfon not say dayo? only in a circumstance where there's a challenge to the Kal V'chomer. But there's no challenge to the Kal V'chomer, is Dayo. Then he would say Dayo. Meaning to say, Rabbi Tarfon doesn't hold by this principle of Dayo in a place in which the Kal V'chomer will be broken as a result of it. Let's say, for example, with respect to paying half damages, that if you say that the Karen that the goring in the domain of the Nizak should only pay half damages, like in the domain of the Rishus Harabim, there Rabbi Tarfon would say, no, the Kal V'chomer, where the Kal V'chomer wouldn't work at all, then he'll say that. Then he won't say Dayo. But in this case, the Kal V'chomer would work. You just can't apply it to this principle. Then Rabbi Tarfon would say we don't apply the principle that we can apply the principle of Dayo. So now the next question. Gufa. So we go back to the question we asked before by Rava, Yesha Ado Tzor, so Ein Ado Tzor. So this is the question we had thought to answer from the dispute between the Rebbe Lezer and the Rabbanan. We say we can't because Rebbe Lezer and Rabbanan are going according to Sumchas. So now we're going to according to the position of the Rabbanan, and Rava is asking, does Tzoros have a din of Ha'adav, Muad? Can you be a Muad for this pebbles or not? Do we say like Karamid Amin, and like that we're going to compare the Tzoros to goring, where there is a muad, and the reason why it would make sense to compare them is they both start out as half damages. Or maybe we were saying it's a derivative of regel, and so therefore, that by regel we never say there's a law of muad. So Tashma, this is now the third time we cite this price on our daf. Hidus ain't a muad. The hopping of the chicken is not a muad. And the Gemara asks a question, Hidus al-Kadaytoch, do you really think that Hidus is what we're talking about? Of course it's muad for hopping. Hidus v'Hidus. No, it must be talking about where there were tzroros. And my love, aren't they talking about a case? Could go into Avatositsim, that it hopped and it shot up pebbles 3 times. And Bava Kamma isn't this the dispute whether or not there's muad by tzroros? So they should answer Rabba's question. Gemara says, no, b'chad zimna. We're talking about a case where it just kicked off the pebbles one time and put the Sumchas Rabbanan Kamiflagi. The Sumchas says it's a muad, pays full damages. Rabbanan says it's not. The Gemara says, let's try and answer the question from the following. Tashma be'ema she'tila glolam isa. Let's say there's an animal that had droppings going into the flour. So Rabbi Yehuda says Mishayim nezek sham. He says you pay full damages. Rabbi Elazar says you pay half damages. Chatzi nezek. So what's the dispute here between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar? It must be could go into Avatlasasim. It must be talking about a case where he's done it where the animal's dropped into the flour 3 times. It's dropping. So the one who says, i.e., Rabbi Yehuda, who says you pay full damages. We assume that this is a case of tzoros because it's the droppings. It's like the pebbles from the animal. And so therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says that there's ha'ada for tzoros. And Rabbi Elazar says it's half damages. So the Gemara, and so Rabbi Elazar says that there's no kuah for tzoros. The Gemara says, no. We're talking about a one-time achadzim. No, but the Sumchas Rabbanan. It's just a dispute between Sumchas and Rabbanan. Well, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar are Amarayim. Why would they just repeat the argument of Sumchas and the Rabbanan? Gemara says, first of all, before the Gemara gets to that question, it's unusual. How can we say that they're arguing about Sumchas and the Rabbanan? This animal that's doing the droppings is something unusual. So therefore, it's a told of Karen. And so therefore, even according to Sumchas, you should only pay half damages because it's Karen. Gemara says, the Dachakayama. No, it's not unusual because the animal is in a tight space, so it had to go dropping somewhere, so it's going to be considered regal. Gemara says, well, if that's the case, why don't we say Rabbi Yehuda says the law is like sumchas? It could have just said that, and that would be much easier that you pay full damage, and Rabbi Yehuda says the law is like Rabbanan, you pay half damages. Gemara says, no, it wants to teach us the chiddush of gulalim, of these droppings. Gulalim, it's jichoy. So you might have thought, oh, basar gufe gririn, since the droppings are coming straight from the body, it's like the body itself, and so therefore we're going to look at it like migufo and not like tzoros, and so therefore you would pay depending on how you categorize it, you pay as regel and full damages under these circumstances. So the Gemara says, Tashma, the Tani Rami Bar Chazkel. So we're trying to answer the question whether it could be a muad for tzoros or not. We have the next case. Let's say you have a tarnigal, Shoshi Rosho Avir Kuizachuchas, or a chicken stuck its head into a glass utensil, Vitakabo, and it basically it shouted out so Ushavaro, and it broke the utensil. Mishalim Nezik Shalom pays full damages. V'amar Rav Yosef Amri Bei Rav Sushetzaram. So too, if you have a horse that neighs and a chamor shenar and a donkey that brays, Shibras Akilim Mishalim Chatzi Nezek. So, but he says you pay half damages. So my lab, what's the dispute between Rami Bar Yechezkel's source, his brisa, and the Talmidim from Rav, who cite a source that says that you pay full damages? Isn't the dispute could go into Avat Plus Sivni? Isn't the dispute where you've done this 3 times, or the animal has brayed or neighed 3 times? And that's the question. And we're reviewing it as tzoros. And the question is, can you have muad for tzoros? That the Rami Bar Chazkel says you can't, and Rav Yosef in the name of Rav says you can. So Mario Saviyesha, Mar Sarena, no, Bachatzin, and it happened one time. We poked at the Sumchas Rabbanan Kamiflagi. And it's a dispute between Sumchas and the Rabbanan. Gemara says Vamashunai, but even according to Sumchas, there should be a told off Karen because it's unusual. Gemara says no, these Bazrani, that there are seeds in it, so therefore there was a reason for him to go in. So it was like not unusual, it was Shane, and so therefore wasn't unusual, and this is the derivative of that. All right, we'll stop here, or maybe it's Rego going into it. So therefore, we're going to say it's the price is talking about a case where there's seeds in it, and so therefore it's not Meshuna under those circumstances. Okay, so therefore we'll stop the recording here. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address.